So there's been an image floating around recently. Which decision by Gege made you the angriest? Jujutsu Kaisen is undoubtedly one of the biggest series in anime to come out in recent times. I feel like no matter which way the story goes, there's bound to be upset fans about certain story decisions made within the series. In this video, we will be going over 8 decisions that have officially ruined the Jujutsu Kaisen series. For some fans, not all. Let's talk about the biggest and most valid one out of this list, Gojo being off-screened. This one shook the whole anime community because at one chapter he was completely fine, and in the next, Gojo was shown on the floor. My boy got cut up into 2 pieces. Actually 4, but you get it. Not gonna lie, when this happened, I could not believe it. I was like, ain't no way Gojo was so powerful that Gege had to off-screen him. Me and a whole bunch of other fans for months on end were coping that Gojo will come back. And to this day, some of us are still coping. So it was shown that Gojo died in chapter 236. It wasn't until 19 weeks later in chapter 225 is where the fandom was let known of what happened during those moments. A sorcerer just before the activation of a curse technique, there will be without an exception a spark. It's the cursed energy that swells up in a sorcerer before activation of a cursed technique. So that being said, if Gojo has the 6 eyes and can see this spark, so then why didn't he see when Sukuna used the world cutting slash? Well, that's because Sukuna used a binding vow to skip all of the steps for an instant activation of a world cutting slash. Therefore, no spark, and Gojo did not see this coming. In return for this though, every time Sukuna uses the world cutting slash, he has to use the hand signs, chants, and use his palm to point in the direction of where he wants it to go. I do understand though, this sounds like a complete ass pull and something that should have not happened. I do agree with this, however, it does make sense. For one, we still needed Yuji to grow into his full potential. We needed to see what he could do. For 2, how were they going to get Megami back? And for 3, there was just a whole lot of other characters that needed to shine, as well as just for the plot to play out. Because if the story would have ended there, then we would not have known what happened to Todo, nor Nobara, or even know what everyone's role was in this fight. Because let's be honest here, if we didn't see Maki versus Sukuna, we would have been like, damn, you know what Gege should have done? Let Maki fight Sukuna. Or like, damn, you know what Gege should have done? Let Yuji fight Sukuna and show his full potential. As much as it sucks, Gojo being off-screened or dying right here was better for the story. Now let's move on to number 2. Yuki's death. Yuki died trying to kill Kenjaku with their curse technique by creating a black hole. However, Kenjaku survived using the curse technique reversal with anti-gravity. A lot of fans felt her death was in vain, and in a way, it was. So in that little story part, Kenjaku was coming for Tengen, and it's not like Tengen, Chozo, or Yuki were just gonna let that happen. So of course, they had to fight, and when things came out for the worst, Yuki sacrificed her own self to create a black hole to kill Kenjaku. I feel like to understand on how Kenjaku survived, you have to understand what a simple domain is. So we all know simple domains can counteract a sure hit effect inside of a domain expansion. However, there is a lot more that simple domains can do than just that. Like for example, you can add your own programming to your simple domain, which means a binding vow in your own curse technique. And in case anyone's doubting me, Kuchisake casted a simple domain that freezes time and enforces a binding vow of non-violence between her and her target until the question, am I pretty, is answered. Mio, the sumo dude, could create a sumo ring and it could massively slow down time with the condition that the opponent agrees to have a match. This is important because within the battle of Yuki and Chozo versus Kenjaku, we see Kenjaku use his anti-gravity technique, and it looks like that Kenjaku is using a simple domain because we see Yuki comment on this. The technique's effective range has a radius of 2 to 3 meters around the sorcerer. So then knowing that he's using a simple domain, we now know how he survived Yuki's black hole because he literally tells us, I used my body as a domain to raise the technique lapse limit on the activation time and unsteady output. Essentially saying that he used the technique on his body and removed the activation time as well as had it at a max output. This wasn't easy though, as he said it himself, it was a gamble. Even with understanding this, fans aren't upset with exactly how she died, just that she did die. Yuki's death has one thing in common with 4 other things on this list, and that is, it's what the fans want to see. No Hein Era FlashBack, Kamutoke Confiscation, Uruame's suicide, and Jogo not being the protagonist. There was no Hein Era flashback of Sukuna because what benefit does that add to the story? There are fans that say certain moments in the manga would have been a perfect time to see Sukuna in the Hein Era. Now I'm not saying that I wouldn't have liked to see the Hein Era, it's just that it adds no benefit to the story whatsoever. It's just something that fans want to see. From the parts of Sukuna's life that we have learned, we've known since birth he's just been a natural calamity. He's been someone that doesn't care and only lives for his own amusement. He's had no wife, no kids, and only really had Uruame. Sukuna was extremely feared. Before and after he became a cursed object, he was known as the King of Curses. The Kamutoke Confiscation, I don't know why people are upset about that. There's nothing to really be upset about. It was already explained on why that got confiscated, but hey, to each their own. Uruame's suicide. Let's be honest, what was she gonna do? She doesn't really come off as the type to crash out once her master dies. It appears that she literally only lived for Sukuna. I mean, that was the whole reason on why Uruame was working with Kenjaku in the first place. So once Sukuna was gone, Uruame was like, that's it for me. Jogo being the MC. Dude, I don't know why I'm talking about this one. This one's obviously a troll. Yojo. I'm not sure if fans are upset that this was a thing, or that they got cucked from Gojo's real return, or are surprised that he didn't do more during the fight. Before the chapter came out, I even predicted that he was not going to be as good as Gojo, because it was foreshadowed in the manga that his use of cursed energy control was sloppy. A lot of the fans had expectations that he was going to be as strong as Gojo fighting Sukuna, but in real terms, he was going to be fighting as if he was teen Gojo. It's simply because Yuta does not have the same experience as Gojo in his own body and using the 6 eyes is what I mean. Now let's talk about the last one, Nobara's late reintroduction. Let's be real, at any point in time in the story would have been convenient or an ass pull or whatever you want to call it, where Nobara would be reintroduced. She took a pretty devastating hit, leaving her with no breathing and no pulse. Basically, her heart had stopped. If it wasn't for Arata using his curse technique on Nobara, she likely would have died then and there. But from there on, it was never confirmed that Nobara was dead. Sure, Yuji thought she died, but that was it. It was Yuji thinking that she did, not a confirmation that she did. Anyway, with that damage to her soul, there was no way that she was going to be up and ready by the Colon Games arc. But let's say she woke up in time before Gojo's fight with Sukuna. She could have intervened at any point in time during his fight, and people would have been like, no way, Nobara's back, this is such an ass pull. It would have taken out the fun of Gojo versus Sukuna. I'm 99% sure fans would have been upset by that decision. Realistically, Nobara came back at the perfect time. If she would have came back at any point in time during the middle of the fight, then it would have avoided a lot of the characters' deaths and therefore make Sukuna look a lot weaker than what he actually is. And then fans would have been like, damn, I wanted to see Sukuna more in his Hein Era form. You know what? This manga sucks. Yeah, I think some of these decisions have ruined JJK, but for the fans that are complaining about it. But of course, I'm only speaking about the ones that are being shown here. There are some where I'm like, okay, come on. But for most people that say that they could write a better story, I'm like, okay, let's slow down there. Because as I said before, most things people want to add to the story is just because they want to see it. It's not actually something that adds benefit to the story. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching this video. I am coming out with some anime reviews and some other stuff that I will be uploading on YouTube Shorts and my TikTok page. I haven't talked about Jujutsu Kaisen in a minute on this channel, and last time I did, it was complete ass. But of course, better videos are coming out. Just give me some time. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you all next time.